My wife accused me of cheating while I worked 12 hours to pay the hospital. Her best friend manipulated her until she hit me. But when the judge discovered the truth in court, Amanda was exposed and never saw coming what happened next. I'm 29 years old, work in construction as a project supervisor, and I need to tell this story because what happened the last few months basically destroyed my marriage and almost took my daughter away from me. I guess I should start from the beginning. When Rebecca and I got married like 4 years ago, we were happy, like that normal happiness where you fight about stupid stuff like who does the dishes or what to watch on Netflix. But at the end of the day, you go to bed and everything's okay. Rebecca worked in an accounting office. I was in construction, making decent money, and the thing worked. We found out about the pregnancy in March last year, and it was, I don't know, exciting but also terrifying because neither of us felt really ready. Rebecca stopped working in her 7th month because the doctor said she had high blood pressure and needed bed rest. And that's when Amanda, her best friend from college, started visiting us more often. Amanda never sat right with me. Honestly, I always had this weird feeling about her. Like she smiled a lot, but her eyes didn't smile. You know what I mean? But Rebecca adored her and said she was like her sister, so I tried to get along. Lily's birth was in December, and it was horrible, like really traumatic. Rebecca was in labor for almost 30 hours. There were complications. The baby had the cord wrapped around her neck, doctors were running everywhere, and I was just standing there unable to do anything but hold her hand while she screamed. In the end, they had to do an emergency C-section, and when they pulled Lily out, I thought she was dead because she wasn't crying. But then she started crying, and we all started crying too. It was intense. Way too intense. After that, Rebecca changed. I mean, I expected her to be tired and all that because she just had a baby, but this was different. She'd stare at the wall for hours, cry for no reason. Sometimes she didn't even want to hold Lily. I told her to go to the doctor, that maybe she had that postpartum depression everyone talks about, but she said no, that she was just tired, that I didn't understand because it wasn't my body that had been destroyed. And she was right about that, I guess, so I tried to give her space and help more with the baby. The problem was that in January, my boss offered me a big project, like really big, which meant like 6 weeks of overtime, but also a bonus we desperately needed because the hospital bills were ridiculous. We're talking like $20,000 even with insurance. I explained everything to Rebecca, and she said it was fine, that we could handle it, and Amanda offered to come help with Lily during the day while I worked. At that moment, I thought it was perfect. Rebecca would have help. I could work the overtime, and everything would work out. I'd come home like 9 or 10 at night after working since 6 in the morning, completely destroyed, and Rebecca would barely talk to me. Amanda was there almost every day, and the two of them would stay in the living room, whispering things I couldn't quite hear. One night I came home and Rebecca was crying, and when I asked her what was wrong, she said nothing, that she was just tired. But Amanda looked at me with this face, like pity mixed with something else. I don't know how to explain it. The thing exploded on a Friday in late February. I got home early, like 6 in the evening, because we'd finished early, and Rebecca was waiting for me at the door with her arms crossed. Amanda was behind her holding Lily. Rebecca saw me and said, "I need to see your phone, right now." I was confused, literally didn't understand what was happening, and I said, "Sure, here it is. Why?" And she said, "Because Amanda told me you're probably having an affair. That's why you work so many hours." I just stood there like an idiot trying to process what I'd just heard. An affair? Me? I work in construction. I spend the day with guys who smell like sweat and cement, and I get home so tired I can barely shower before passing out. When exactly would I have time for an affair? I told her all that, but Rebecca just screamed, "Give me the phone. Give me the fucking phone now." So I gave it to her, and she started checking everything. Messages, calls, photos, emails, absolutely everything. While Amanda watched and nodded like she was doing the right thing. She spent like an hour checking my phone and found nothing because there's nothing to find. But instead of apologizing or admitting she was wrong, Rebecca threw the phone at me and said, that didn't prove anything. That I probably had another phone or used apps that deleted themselves. Amanda said, "Yes, Rebecca, Men are very clever about these things. You have to keep investigating. And I was standing there thinking, what the fuck is happening? Is this my wife? The woman who promised me eternal love 4 years ago? The next few weeks were a nightmare. Rebecca started searching for evidence all over the house, checking my clothes, my pockets, my car. She even followed me to work one day to see if I'd detour somewhere. I tried to talk to her, begged her to go to therapy, to see a doctor, that this wasn't normal. But Amanda was always there whispering things in her ear. One day, I heard Amanda tell her, "Men never admit the truth until you confront them with solid evidence. You have to keep looking." The worst thing happened on a Tuesday in March. I got home from work and the house was destroyed, literally destroyed. There were clothes thrown everywhere, drawers open, mattresses flipped, everything. And Lily was in her crib crying. She'd been crying so long she was red and her voice was gone. Rebecca was in the living room, surrounded by all my stuff, my work papers, old receipts, everything, looking for who knows what. I yelled at her. "What the fuck did you do? You left the baby crying alone for hours to look for evidence of an affair that doesn't exist?" And she looked at me with completely empty eyes and said, "You had to be hiding it somewhere," Amanda said. "Men always keep evidence." I tried to calm her down, but she started screaming at me, calling me a liar, a cheater, that I'd ruined her life. I had Lily in my arms trying to calm her down while Rebecca kept screaming. And honestly, I thought I was going to have a panic attack right there. That night, I put Lily to sleep and tried to talk to Rebecca. I told her this had to stop, that she needed professional help, that postpartum depression was real and it was consuming her. She just cried and said she wasn't crazy, that she knew what was happening, that Amanda was helping her see the truth. I asked her, "What truth? What truth exactly?" Because I work 12 hours a day to pay our debts and come straight home. Where's the affair in that? But it was like talking to a wall. Things reached the breaking point on a Friday in late March. I was in the kitchen preparing Lily's bottle when Rebecca came in with Amanda. They were both looking at me weird. And Rebecca said, "Amanda found something." My heart started beating fast because I knew there was nothing to find, but I also knew that in the mental state Rebecca was in, anything could be misinterpreted. Amanda pulled out her phone and showed me a photo of my car parked outside an apartment building. She said, "Explain this. What were you doing there last Tuesday at 7 at night?" I looked at the photo and laughed, like literally laughed, because that building was where Carlos lived, one of the architects on the project, and I'd gone to pick up some plans I needed for the next day. I explained all that, but Amanda said, "How convenient. You always have an excuse." And then Rebecca pushed me hard against the refrigerator and started screaming in my face, "Tell me the truth, tell me the fucking truth, who are you with?" I tried to calm her down, to hold her hands, but she broke free and hit me in the face with a closed fist. I felt my lips split open, and blood started running. Rebecca stood there staring at her hand like she couldn't believe what she'd just done, and Amanda said, "See what you provoke. See how you make her feel." I was in shock, completely in shock, because my wife, the woman who supposedly loved me, had just punched me in the face. I grabbed a towel to wipe the blood and said, "This is over. I'm leaving, and I'm taking Lily with me." I went to Lily's room, packed a diaper bag with everything she needed, picked up the baby who thank God was asleep, and left the house. Rebecca and Amanda followed me screaming, telling me I couldn't take the baby, that it was kidnapping, that they'd call the police. I told them to call whoever they wanted, that I'd been assaulted and had the right to protect my daughter. I drove to my parents' house crying the whole way. With my swollen lip and Lily asleep in her car seat, my parents opened the door, and my mom almost fainted when she saw my face. I told them everything, absolutely everything, from the postpartum depression to the false accusations to Rebecca hitting me. My dad wanted to call the police immediately, but I told him to wait, that I needed to think things through clearly. That night, I didn't sleep at all. Just stayed watching Lily sleep in the portable crib my parents still had from when my nephews were babies. The next day, like midnight, there was a knock on my parents' door. It was Rebecca with Amanda, both of them screaming to give back the baby. My dad went out and told them to leave, or he'd call the police. Rebecca was crying, saying she wanted her daughter, but when my dad asked her if she could take care of her safely, If she wasn't having thoughts of hurting herself or the baby, Rebecca just kept crying. Amanda said she could help take care of Lily, and my dad said, "You're not the mother. You have no rights here." On Monday, I went to a lawyer. I told him the whole story, showed him photos of my split lip, of the destroyed house, everything. The lawyer told me I needed to document absolutely everything, every incident, every message, every call. He also told me to file for a temporary restraining order and start the process for legal separation with full temporary custody of Lily. It hurt to hear that because I didn't want to get divorced. I wanted my wife to get better, but the lawyer was clear. My priority had to be my daughter's safety. Rebecca's parents called me that week. They were devastated because Rebecca had moved in with them and was in really bad shape. Her mom told me Rebecca wasn't eating, barely sleeping, just stayed in her room crying. I asked if they'd considered admitting her or seeking emergency psychiatric help, and her mom said yes, but Rebecca refused. They also asked about Lily, and I told them she was fine, that she was with me and my parents, and that they could visit her whenever they wanted, but Rebecca couldn't come near until there was a court order. Things got worse. Amanda, because apparently Rebecca couldn't function on her own anymore, filed a restraining order against me, alleging I was emotionally abusive, that I'd abandoned her with a newborn baby, that I'd isolated her from her friends and family. It was all lies. Every word was a lie. But now I had to go to court and defend myself against these ridiculous accusations while trying to take care of a 3-month-old baby practically alone. The hearing was in April. I arrived with my lawyer, with photos of my beaten face, with text messages where Rebecca accused me of things I didn't do, with testimonies from my coworkers confirming my schedule. Amanda arrived with Rebecca, who looked horrible, honestly looked like she hadn't showered in weeks, with dirty hair and sunken eyes. The judge listened to everything, reviewed all the evidence, and when Amanda testified, the judge started asking questions she couldn't answer well. The judge asked her, "Did you see direct evidence of an affair?" And Amanda said, "No, but that it was obvious from the hours I worked." The judge asked her, "Are you a therapist or qualified mental health professional to diagnose postpartum depression?" And Amanda said no, but that she knew the signs. Then the judge asked her, "Why did you encourage your friend to confront her husband violently instead of seeking professional help?" And Amanda didn't know what to say, just stammered something about supporting her friend. The judge dismissed the restraining order and granted me full temporary custody of Lily until Rebecca could demonstrate she was receiving treatment and was stable. He also ordered Amanda to have no contact with Rebecca for 90 days because, in his words, her influence had been extremely detrimental and potentially dangerous. Rebecca just cried in her chair, and part of me wanted to go hug her, but a bigger part was furious about everything that had happened. After the hearing, Rebecca's parents caught up with me in the parking lot. Her mom apologized to me, said they hadn't realized how bad Rebecca was until it was too late. They told me they'd found a treatment center specializing in severe postpartum depression and were going to admit her because she'd admitted the night before that sometimes she thought about hurting herself. That broke my heart. Like, really destroyed me to hear that, because that wasn't the Rebecca I knew. Rebecca was admitted for like 6 weeks. During that time, I kept working, taking care of Lily with help from my parents, and trying to process everything that had happened. I received a letter from Rebecca in late May, handwritten, where she apologized for everything. She said she didn't remember many things from the last few months. Well, that it was like she'd been living in a fog, and that the doctors had explained that the combination of birth trauma, severe postpartum depression, and Amanda's manipulation had led her to a temporary psychotic state. In the letter, she also said she'd cut all contact with Amanda, that she finally understood Amanda hadn't been helping her, but feeding her delusions and paranoia because she was jealous of our family. Apparently, Amanda had had a miscarriage years ago and never got over it, and seeing Rebecca with a baby had put her in a dark mental place where she projected her pain as manipulation. I don't know if that justifies what she did, but at least it explains something. Rebecca left the treatment center in June, but didn't come back home. She stayed with her parents and started intensive therapy, 3 times a week. I allowed her to see Lily under her parents' supervision, short 1-hour visits where she could hold her and play with her. Rebecca cried every time she had to give her back to me, but understood she had to rebuild trust. We had a conversation like 3 weeks ago that was difficult, but necessary. Rebecca told me she didn't think she could be a mother right now, that she had to focus on her recovery, and that it would be selfish to pretend she could take care of Lily when she was still struggling to take care of herself. She asked me to keep full custody, that she'd keep seeing Lily and paying child support when she could go back to work, but that for now the best thing was for Lily to be with me. It was honest of her, I guess, but it was also devastating to hear. We signed the papers last week. Full custody for me, supervised visits for her until a therapist declares her stable. The divorce isn't finalized yet, but it's on its way. Rebecca is better. I can see it. But things between us are broken in a way I don't know if they can be fixed. Last night, Lily woke up crying, and when I picked her up, I just stood there in the dark, thinking about everything that happened. My daughter will never remember these months, will never know how close she came to losing both parents, in different ways. And I'm going to have to carry those memories for the rest of my life, along with the question of whether I could have done something different. If I could have insisted more that Rebecca seek help,